to the iPad.
Shimmy, shimmy, yay, shimmy, yay, shimmy, ah. Oh, drank. Yeah, it's a dance circle. Oh, no.
Welcome back, everybody. Jensen is our dramaturge. Jensen so kindly put together that fantastic casebook for us all to look at. We literally just used it when we were meeting with Aaron to kind of refer back to some of the things that need translation, and yeah. So far it's already been very helpful. I'm gonna hand it over to you. I'm gonna kind of let you run this.
Okay. Hi guys. I guess I kind of first want to start off by saying thank you for having me. I'm super excited, and if I kind of stumble or do anything, this is my first time actually doing this on a show, so just give me some grace. But I hope you all had a chance to look over the casebook a little bit. If not, that's okay. We'll go over it a little bit more tonight. But I kind of just wanted to start off with just kind of asking, I want to make this very conversational. I don't want this to be a presentation. I don't want to talk at you guys. You all have your own ideas, and I don't want to pretend like you don't know anything about this. So I kind of want to talk about what your guys's ideas about the time period kind of are/were heading into this show, just so I can kind of get an idea of, historians like to call the first draft, or what everyone thinks of a story as, the beta story. So as the very first thing that you think of when you think of a time period. So let's say we're talking about the American 1960s, you're gonna think, oh, hippies, protests, all that fun stuff, social change. So what are some key words or things that you think about when you think about the Holocaust or 1930s, 1940s Germany? No need to raise hands, just toss things out.
Propaganda.
Propaganda.
Backsliding.
Okay.
Parties.
Mm-hmm.
Radios. Hitler.
Good one.
Queerness.
Yeah. No, that's all really good. Those are all definitely things that were happening at that time period, and all of them really play into what we're going to be doing with the show. But I kind of wanted to start with talking about my vision, and kind of what I see when I look at the show and what I see when I look at the script. And so when I'm looking at Cabaret, I'm thinking about how it's literally about people. It is about their lives and how they are affected by the government and politics, and how every day and every time I watch this show again, it is becoming more and more obvious to me that that is something that we're also dealing with right now. And I think that this is something that audiences need to see right now, just with the way that the world is in, no matter what you want to take that with. But this is a show that is very timely, and it's not exactly something that's going to be foreign to audiences. So it's something that we have to be delicate with, in the sense that we need to be accurate with our portrayal of the show, and we need to be sensitive with it, but at the same time, we cannot tiptoe around the truth. That is how we kind of, like Drew said, backslide into those kinds of things happening. And ignoring what's happening, ignoring the truth, is kind of how we get ourselves back into those situations, and how shows like this can crash and burn. So the most important thing is that everyone is kind of aware and on the same page that this isn't going to be a fun conversation by any means. It's not going to be fun to work on some of these scenes. It's not for our own personal enjoyment. It's just what needs to happen. And I kind of think that what Luke and Adrian and I have talked about with the mirrors and asking the audience, who do you see yourself in, is such it's a question that honestly made me think when we walked away from our first meeting together about who I saw myself in. And I want to make sure that I like what I see myself in when it comes to this show. and I hope all of you feel the same way about that. Whether you agree with the character you're playing or whether you don't, it's important to approach them with compassion because your character believed in what they were doing. Whether you agree with that sentiment or not, your character believed in what they were doing. They believed what they were doing was right. And you need to approach that with the utmost compassion and sincerity because if you cannot rationalize your role in any way, I don't believe you can play it. And it's just sort of important to think about that when you're going into your rehearsals. So when we go over this stuff, I know that some of you are playing roles that you might not be share ideals with. At least I hope not. But just make sure that you're thinking about that as well. They all had reasons for what they did. They weren't right, but they all had reasons. And so we're gonna pay attention to that. So if you don't understand something that I talk about, I want you to ask me. I want this to be a conversation. I don't want to just sit here and yell at you about this, but just ask. I'm very much want this to be a conversation, and I don't want to just yap for an hour and a half. But sort of moving on to some background information about the show. So if you had time to take a look at the casebook, I wrote little bios for our composers and playwrights. So the playwright was Joe Mastroff, and he grew up in Philadelphia, which is really funny considering Cliff is also from Pennsylvania, which is just a funny little note there. But he actually graduated school with a degree in journalism, and didn't really do much in actual story writing when it came to fictional stories. But he enlisted in the Army the day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which is another interesting thing considering the context of the show, with that sort of being what roped the United States into war. And then it ended 30-ish years later. But he served in England for 3 years before he came back to America, and then he studied playwriting at the American Theater Wing. And this opportunity was paid for due to his status as a veteran, so if he had not done that, we would not have the show, which is really interesting. But he did not have a ton of successful performances until She Loves Me, which I'm sure every soprano in the world has ever heard of. And that obviously went super popular with Bach and Harnick. And then after that, he wrote Cabaret alongside Kander and Ebb. So that is something interesting about him. So moving on to Kander and Ebb. John Kander and Fred Ebb are a duo who began in the mid-1960s. So Kander composed our music and Ebb wrote our lyrics. And Kander was born into a super musical household. He grew up playing piano, and he studied music in college, got his master's degree from Columbia University, all that stuff. And he worked as a pianist and a summer stock conductor throughout basically his entire life. And then Fred Ebb, he also grew a love for theater at a young age, and received his undergrad degree from NYU in 1955 and his master's in English Lit from Columbia, which is where he met John Kander. So they met in 1962 and began originally collaborating, just writing singles for pop stars such as Barbra Streisand. And then eventually, their Broadway debut was with Flora and the Red Menace, if you've ever heard of that. It's a smaller show. But then they sort of found, with that show, that they wanted to make their muse Liza Minnelli. Back around this time, it was a really big thing for composers to make someone their muse. This happened with Ethel Merman, and who am I thinking? Cole Porter. Cole Porter made Ethel Merman his muse. And that was just sort of, people wrote their music for specific actresses to sing. And I Don't Care Much was originally a single written for Barbara Streisand, but then they found Liza. They won their first Tony for Cabaret, and then they continued to win a million and one more, including for Chicago and such. But that is just kind of some background on them. So moving into the history of the production itself, it opened in 1966 on Broadway, and then the next big production was in 1968 on West End. And all of these casts included really, really awesome characters, and I'm sort of like, I'm not going to try to go off on a big tangent, but my favorite part of the original Broadway cast is Lottie Lenya as Fräulein Schneider. If you know anything about her, she was married to Kurt Weill, who wrote, I'm trying to think of what it's called right now.
3 p.m.
Yes, thank you. He wrote Three Penny Opera, which is a big controversial show that he wrote during the Holocaust about, it was a commentary on the world that was happening during the Holocaust that he wrote during the Holocaust. And he and Lottie had to flee from Germany, essentially. And he ended up passing away much before she did. But after all of that happened, she played Fräulein Schneider in this show, in the original cast, which I think is so interesting, since that was just such a callback to her actual life. She was also Kurt Weill's muse, as she played Jenny in the original production of that show. So I think that that's super sweet. But another big West End revival happened in 1986, and this is with Gillian Lynn. If you know, she's a big choreographer who was super successful. And then 1987, was when Harold Prince stepped onto the field for this show, and he's kind of like the biggest, most important director in my opinion when it comes to this show. His interpretations are ones that have sort of set off all kinds of ideas for what goes on with this show, and as a Jewish man himself, he added quite a lot to the ideas that were being portrayed in the show. And along with that, there was a song called Don't Go that was added for Cliff's character. It's not good. To put it lightly. There's a reason it's not in there anymore. But it's in there, that's for sure. And that was like one of the first major like rewrites that we sort of had. And it was him convincing Sally to stay with him instead of going back to the Kit Kat Club. So it was just sort of like an odd thing, I guess, because during the show he was like, it was this big dramatic scene of like, don't go back, stay with me. And then he's like, don't go. And it's just like,
I think we put it back in.
it was just, I don't know, the candor of the song was not right for the moment, but it's fine. But they did something right, and they added I Don't Care Much for the MC's character, which is one of the most beautiful songs in the world. And then 1993 is the first draft of the version that we are using. Sam Mendes directed a brand new version for the Dahmer Warehouse in London. And this is when Alan Cumming and Jane Horrocks first stepped onto the scene. And the biggest difference in this production was how they handled the MC. In the other ones, he was very like silly, very much just making a joke out of everything, whereas Cummings was more like eerie. He over-sexualized everything, and audiences were not expecting that at all. And I think that that is a very interesting thing that has been taken into further productions of the show. This was the first production in which Tomorrow Belongs to Me was played on a gramophone instead of sung by an all like soprano boys male choir in the background, and I just think that it's so much more haunting playing with the gramophone. So that was a cool addition. Along with the MC taking off his overcoat and revealing a yellow star for being Jewish, a red star for being a communist, and a pink triangle for homosexuality. There was this was the addition of the scene where Cliff kisses one of the Kit Kat boys, which kind of calls back to the original book and the original play, Goodbye to Berlin and I Am a Camera, and how Cliff's character being bisexual was like a big part of this. So that was super interesting, as well as Don't Go being taken out and Mine Hair being added, which is another great song. So that's super great. And then we're moving on to the version that we have today, which is the 1998 version. And this was at the Roundabout Theater Company. And Rob Marshall was the co-director and choreographer. That was heavily inspired by the Dahmer Warehouse production. But it opened on March 19th, 1998, and they renamed the theater for this run, calling it the Kit Kat Club, so that it was one of those more interactive scenes, which we sort of see bleeding into today, how they called it Cabaret the Kit Kat Club. And it later transferred to Studio 54 and remained there, and this is where Alan Cumming reprised his role and Natasha Richardson joined the cast as Sally. So another big cast. This production was nominated for 10 Tony Awards, and Cumming, Richardson, and the actor for Herr Schultz, Ron Rifkin, won 4 of them. And then they also won the best revival of a musical. There were, the song Two Ladies was added for the MC, a Kit Kat girl and a Kit Kat boy in drag. And then there was originally a song called Sitting Pretty, which mocked despair and hunger and all that. And then Money was added. Are you a fan of that?
I love Sitting Pretty so much. I love that song.
I do too. But it was removed, and then Money became its own number. Because Money was sort of in conjoinment with that. And then maybe this time was added from the film. Moving on to more modern productions, Roundabout Theater Company put on their version of the 1998 version again, and Sam Mendes and Rob Marshall directed it again. It was the same exact thing. Alan Cumming came back for a 3rd time. Michelle Williams played Sally, Danny Bernstein played Herr Schultz, and Linda Emmond played Fraulein Schneider. This is also where we got our Emma Stone as Sally, and Sienna Miller as our Sally. And then Cumming never left the production. He stayed for the entire 2000 performance run. It was insane. I'm sure that man has 6,000 productions of this show at this point.
I think he said he's played it in his 20s, his 30s, his 40s, and his 50s.
That's insane.
He's played it in 4 generations or eras of his life.
I watched an interview with him, and he was like, I have no desire to see that show ever again.
I'm cabaret out. I'm done.
I'm inviting him, actually.
Well, thank God. Yes, and then we moved on to what we have today, which is our Cabaret, the Kit Kat Club, with all the fun, bright colors, the theater in the round kind of seating, as well as the more marionette doll situation that we have. But due to marketers such as Cameron McIntosh putting logos on everything, we branded Cabaret the Kit Kat Club and saw that everywhere for about 4 years. And it sold. There were only 550 seats in this theater that they used, and they sold out almost every one. But that is sort of how I feel like that's just such an interesting seating arrangement to have for Cabaret.
It's just slightly bigger than our theater. Ours is,
535.
Yep. Just slightly bigger than ours. So picture cutting our theater in half, putting the other half on the other side of you, and that's all the farther you had to play.
And I think that's so cool.
It's cool.
That's just such an awesome way to go about it. But yes, so
Don't give them
That
ideas.
started on the West End with Eddie Redmayne and Jessie Buckley, and then transferred to Broadway in 2024, where Eddie Redmayne came back as the MC and Gail Rankin came as Sally, with another personal favorite, Phoebe Newworth, as Fraulein Schneider. I love her, and I would do anything for that woman. But yeah, obviously there have been so many notable replacements, including everyone's favorite, Billy Porter, and sorry, you can laugh at me, guys. But yeah, that closed pretty recently. So that was just kind of a lot of background information. Does anyone have any comments?
Do you mind if I pose a question
Yeah.
to everybody? Like, what is everyone's like version of cabaret? Like, what is the for folks who like? I know again just the house I grew up in. Like, we listened to the the original Broadway cast recording a ton, and then I was 16 and edgy and found the Alan Cumming version. It was like, oh, this is amazing, right? So like, is there just any like production that really sticks with folks?
The first show I worked on at Quatso Music Group was the 1970 version of Cabaret, and I worked on the crew for that show when I was a freshman in high school. And so it was the original version with all the
Sitting Pretty.
City Pretty, and the song for Cliff was Why Should I Wake Up?
Yep.
And some other
The hello song, is it?
Hello, how the opening
Hello
show,
from-
hello, where they talk to each other on the with the phones on the table and all that stuff. And it was really an excellent show back then, and so that was my first encounter with it. And I loved it then. And I haven't actually seen other than the one we did here at Guild. What was that? How many years ago?
2014.
2014. So 12 years ago.
Was it 2014?
So
That was
that
2013.
Was it
So those
Was
are
it
the only
13?
times I've seen it live.
I don't know.
It was 2013.
Yeah, I don't think so.
The first one I watched was the pro shot of the '93 production in London. I loved Chicago, and I knew Kander and Ebb wrote the music for Cabaret. I had never seen or heard anything about it, and I watched it on a bus ride to Chicago. And I was crying in my seat by myself. And everyone's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Too hard to explain it, guys. I'm fine. Thank you, though."
I prefer the 93 ending over this one, just because it's a little more. Because that's the one where it has the different lines.
The
from
callbacks.
people. Yeah.
I also like that. I also prefer that ending, where like each individual cast member, almost the whole cast is out on the stage for that one, and then you've got like Fraulein Schneider saying "One does what one must," Ernst saying if you were a German, you would understand. Sally saying it's just politics, and what does that got to do with us? And I do prefer that ending too.
It kind of takes the place of a curtain call too,
It does.
because then you can give your accolades.
Yeah, you have your little moment. You have your moment. Yeah, I do prefer that ending. But I watched if you ever look on Concord, which is who we license the show through, they have like a breakdown of the 3 different versions of Cabaret that you can license. The 66 version, the 87 revival, and then the 98 version. And you get to like see all of the different like compare and contrast of like all of the different songs. They've got a breakdown of like, well, in the 98 version, it's like implied that Cliff is bi. In the 98 version, it is very much explicitly said that Cliff is bi. And then you get to see just like slowly the songs that were put in the movie just being added to the productions. Because if you've never watched the movie, it is so far removed from what this is. It's insane.
I texted Jensen when I watched the movie and I said, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
I said I wish I could tell you.
Yeah, it's so far, it's so different. It's good. It's good on its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. But if you want to watch it to compare it to this, you won't find very many comparisons.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah. The first time that I saw this show, I was a junior in high school, and I watched it in person. I had never seen the show before. I obviously had heard of it, but I'd never seen it before. And I went and saw it with knowing nothing about it, and they did. I think they did the 1966 version, and it was. I don't even know like how to explain like how the reason I'm so passionate about having the show be like such a shock to the system when you don't like know what it's about or like advertising it like it's Chicago is because that's what I had. Because I went in and saw a show where it was advertised like it was just gonna be like a fun show, and then it wasn't. And that like just the effect that it had on me, like that is why I feel so deeply about it. Because from that day forward, like I've been obsessed with this show. I have said so many times that I've wanted to do everything possible for this show. So this being like my first and like time working on it is super awesome and super special. But yeah, that was my first time seeing the show.
I feel like going into it with that expectation is part of the story.
Yep.
Going into it expecting the party and getting the reality of the world that the party gets set in is to me part of what we're telling. Because I agree, it was a shock to the system of like, ooh, oh God, what's going on? And all of a sudden the show kind of devolves and is so far removed from the joyous, happy number that it starts with. And you're like, oh, the world has completely changed around me. And you kind of feel like Cliff of like, oh yeah, things have gotten bad. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Yeah. It was a very special show for me to see at that age as well. Because I think I was 16. So it was like, I was just starting to kind of like form my own opinions about the world and figure out like what I believed in and getting ready to vote in the next couple years. So it was very interesting. But
I mean, I think like we've said it, we'll keep saying it, that like the show's relevant, but I think that it's also so telling that every generation has their own cabaret. Probably every time the show's been done, they're like, and it's so relevant right now.
Although,
Right?
do you also want to shout out Schitt's Creek version? Because Schitt's Creek version is also really good.
If you've never watched Schitt's Creek, it's really, really
You
good.
should honestly just look up on YouTube the compilation of all of it put together.
It's very
Keeping in
good.
mind it's a really tiny town, so there's only like 5 people on the show. But it's so
It's really good.
I just watched
Maybe
that.
this time is so good.
It was only the MC and Sally doing money, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. She just got
Mhm.
fired.
Yeah, it's like that in the movie. Yep, it's like that in the movie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yep. Which and that just goes to show
yes.
the general public's idea of what this show is versus what this show actually is are two very different things.
I literally just watched a YouTube about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a really good YouTube video.
Mhm.
If I can find it, I'll link it.
I think it was.
It like compares both of the things and how contrasted they are.
Mhm.
Because the film is so bright and it's so like flashy and beautiful, and the play is soft.
There was, I think Brittany Anderson's mom had a conversation with Brittany. If you don't know Brittany, Brittany's done a couple shows here. She's in her early 20s. She's done like Kinky Boots here. She was in Escape to Margaritaville. Anyway, she had a conversation with her mom, and her mom was so excited to see Cabaret in this year's season because, you know, Guild had been doing some racier shows lately, and she was excited to see, you know, like a wholesome classic being done on this stage. And I'm like, your mom doesn't know what this show's actually about. Huh, fascinating. Like, that it's just so fascinating to compare what audiences think this show actually is compared to what it has been since it began. Like, since the original production, it's always been a racier show that offends people. Like, it always has and it always will. And people somehow forget it. It's so fascinating.
Because you want to.
Because you do want to forget it, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess it is that bad,
You
huh?
want to be Sally. You don't want to think about it.
Yeah, yep.
Yes. I think it's very telling that throughout every production of this show, the actors all have stories about how, on opening night, so many people walked out of the theater. And I just think that that's so interesting, and I'm very much anxiously waiting to see if that happens. I kind of want it to.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
We had every night, I think, we had people walk out.
No.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the organization, we don't want people walking.
No.
out.
Well,
No.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when we did it in 2013, literally every night,
Yeah.
With
at
it.
least one person left it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so
That's
interesting.
like.
What is the
Everyone's a
synopsis
critic.
for the show?
I know.
Look at that.
It the synopsis for the show is the Berlin stuff. I'm very much on the official stuff advertising it as.
So it's literally like,
Yeah.
hey, you're gonna see a show that kind of devolves.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't want to read.
No.
I'd rather go see fun colors.
Well, yes.
Well, and we talked during our interview for the show. I mean, the show is rated PG-13 as it's written, which includes the drug use, the alcohol, the abortion, the everything. I don't know why it's rated PG-13. I guess because there's no blood and because there's not enough cursing to make it R, but man, I think PG-13 is not accurate for the show.
It's a hard PG-13.
Yeah, it's a very hard PG-13, but yeah, so yeah,
It's also the time we're living in.
yeah,
Kids are exposed to so much
True.
more.
That's true.
True.
That's true.
13 is,
yep, fair, true.
wouldn't be shocking to 13-year-old,
No,
And
sadly.
I do remember for 2013 that it was not like the sexual content that people stood up and walked out. It's when the swastika was first revealed.
oh yeah,
That's right. Yeah, that's
That's
right.
when and for whatever reason. I mean, again,
Mhm.
there could be many reasons why some people
Yeah.
would feel uncomfortable and walk out, but that is like when we would be able to see people get up and leave.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yes. And then I think we got the most comments.
No one got up and left.
Yeah, I think we got the most comments or complaints about two ladies.
Yeah.
But
That makes sense.
yeah.
Where are we at?
I was really excited to hear you say
We're
money.
doing good on time, but
She knows.
yeah, that's all very good. Kind of moving along just into the more topic of the show itself. I kind of wanted to ask you guys, have a conversation about where you think your characters, and if you're ensemble, I want you to kind of create a version of that character in your mind. They were all people too. So I just kind of want to talk about your characters and what all of like your visions are and how you see them fitting in with this time period. I'm sure that some of you have done some character work with Adrian, which is super great, but I think it'd be, if you're comfortable sharing, it'd be helpful to kind of share that with everyone, and just sort of talk about where you see your characters. So anyone can sort of talk if they would like.
I think Herr Schultz is like many of the people in Germany at that time who felt that yes, there was this movement, this thing happening, but it would pass and everything would be okay. And whether they really knew that for sure or whether that was their hope, I think that would be his mindset. I'm a German, I have my shop, I have my life, and this is not good, but it will pass, it'll go away, as I think it's been mentioned, unfortunately, a lot of times, in that time, I think a lot of people felt that it wouldn't come to what came. They were, I think, maybe shocked and surprised when it actually did, even though they maybe in the back of their minds had suspicions that it was going to be that way.
well, and I think
I was just gonna say, I think that's the age of the characters. They had, Fräulein Schneider, same thing. I mean, she had lived her life. She'd seen things come. She'd seen, kind of. We've seen things come. We've seen things go. And there's always the next thing. you get to a point where, you know, it's this time, but tomorrow is another day. And it truly is, you know, and so I think they were hopeful because, you know, when you look at what ended up happening, it was horrific, but then it ended. Even though it was horrific, it did end, and people were able to now understand that happened. Let's not live through that again, you know. And I think that's the hope that they had, you know, that we've seen things, and you know, bad stuff happens, and people still survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think part of Herr Schultz's mindset is also in the fact that he's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
why would they target him? He's not doing anything to hurt anybody. The rest of Germany didn't see it that way, but and because he was born there, he was a German.
And I think that's very important.
Yeah. Yep.
It wouldn't happen to me.
Yep. The leopards won't eat my face. When we've mentioned that numerous times already in rehearsals. Yeah.
I love Fräulein Schneider's line of, it's like there was a revolution and I survived. There was a famine and I survived. Because I mean that is like
The communists come, they go.
Yeah.
I've lived through that, and I'm going to live through this too.
And to like piggyback off of technically that line, inflation. So like the economy was shitty.
Oh yeah.
Really bad.
I took a World Wars and Revolutions class in high school, and one of the things that we were taught was sellers just stopped going into work because they didn't know what price to even put on their board, and then also nobody even had the money to buy their wares. So why spend the time going to work if the money you make today is going to inflate 1,000-fold tomorrow? And so people just, the entire economy literally just stopped because what did it matter? It had gotten that bad. Truly, like she said, billions of marks for a loaf of bread. Like that's how insane inflation got in the era leading up to the Weimar Republic.
A lot of people really only consider the Great Depression in the United States, but this was everywhere. The entire world was in such a they were having such a problem at this point. I remember I was talking to Adrian about this to pass along, but Sally, coming from England, she was leaving a Great Depression affected England as well. There was nowhere to escape the fact that no one could afford anything. So that's kind of important to think about as well. The entire world was in a depression.
And Germany was made out to be the bad guys after World War I.
Yes.
And Germany was hit extremely hard.
Well, they had to pay so many damages, reparations for World War I. Considering in the Treaty of Versailles, they were blamed for everything that happened in World War I. So they were hit really, really hard because the Great Depression sort of happening in 1921 was obviously not in anyone's plan, but it did happen to the entire world. But Germany had just paid hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to other countries to help pay for the damage caused by World War I. So they were already in debt from that, and then the Great Depression hit every single country in the world.
It's one of the reasons I kind of find it fascinating that Sally decides to go from England to Germany, because I don't know the years. What are the, because I've tried to like make that in my head of like how old she would have been when there were literally bombs being dropped on her country.
She would have been just being born because this is 1930, and if we say Sally is 30 years old, the World War I started 1914. So she would have been really, really young.
Regardless, she still has a dad who's a veteran.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but it's just fascinating because she chooses to move to Berlin of all places.
Yeah.
But also, Berlin was a place of film
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and had a bustling like LGBTQ bohemian kind of thing
Yeah.
going on right before everything fell apart.
Well, yes.
Right before.
That's just like, I mean, you think about in America, I mean, so many people want to move out to LA and get a start out there, but you move out there and you're going to struggle. So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, it's a very similar thing in that aspect. But if anyone else have any ideas about the character they were sure, yeah.
So, with everyone being poor,
Mm-hmm.
Germany also being explicitly targeted by these, you're going to have a lot of young people who feel targeted,
Mm-hmm.
disenfranchised, and then you've got this little party come along, and they're really good talkers, and they promise you a better future, and you want to believe in something, you want to make your country better.
And aren't you so damn tired of seeing all those gay people down the street? You know?
Yep.
And
It's
those
just part
Jews
of it,
taking
yeah.
your money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just a little bit part of it. Don't worry about that, though.
Is that, I mean, we jokingly, but not jokingly, said it's like, I liked him for his economic views. Like, and
Yeah.
then,
Right.
And then
His anti-smoking
where does it go
policies.
from there?
Yeah.
Like of again, like if somebody's giving you answers, you're gonna take them.
They weren't real answers.
Yeah.
No,
He didn't have any actual plan.
no.
But it was a concept of a plan.
It was
Well,
somebody. It was somebody to blame.
It was somebody to blame in a time where you wanted to be angry at someone.
This is the kind of rationalization with your character I want to see. Put her there.
Oh yeah. Yes. And I also think going off of that too, like I think with Coast, because we talked about this with the character work, I think Coast just really wanted a community to be a part of. And then she's a businesswoman.
It's like the business and the community.
Yeah.
It makes sex work legal.
But then also I think when Drew reveals his armband at the party is like the first time that she sees that someone in that political party has gotten respect. And then I think that's also why she starts singing Tomorrow Belongs to Me, is what me, Luke, and Adrian had talked about too.
Yeah.
It's kind of her turning point.
Do you listen to it on the radio beforehand? So yeah, you were already like, yeah.
But not out yet.
Yeah.
We called this Coast's coming out moment.
Coast coming out party.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming out as a Nazi.
Oh my God, it's safe.
Which, you know, that's one thing I don't like about this version, because the Mieskite song, Herr Schultz outed himself to everybody, and in this, they've taken Coast and made her the one who, you know what? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mieskite song,
Mies-
he
yeah,
sings about-
cut that song too, you know.
About their,
Yeah.
even if
He's
you're ugly, there may be
yeah.
beautiful things in you, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's you know, it's a very
It's a
touching,
sweet, yeah.
has a very poignant message.
Yeah.
But it's a very sweet song, but it's not in it.
I mean, doesn't Coast kind of have an axe to grind a tiny bit against you?
Well, I guess in this version, yes, but in that version, there was just a little bit of, you know, back and forth between the two, because, you know, Fräulein Schneider came from money, obviously, because, you know, she had a maid and she lived, you know, spent her summers by the sea, you know, and she had money, and so I'm sure that now that she doesn't have as much money, she probably still carries herself like, you know, I was born into a better life, and the life that she's living would not have, my parents would not have been proud of me having her in my building.
Yeah.
You know?
I think maybe one of the reasons for the changes is that Herr Schultz probably sees himself as German first in this production, and like that's why somebody else needs to say it, because it's not something that he's necessarily thinking of as being a problem. Is that he's like, oh, you know, this isn't. I'm a German. What does that have to do with me? And she's like, well, did you hear that he's also Jewish?
And Ernst even has a kind of a conversation with Schultz. He has Schultz talking drunkenly at him, but like Ernst shows no anger or whatsoever. Ernst was just happy the couple. And then, as soon as he hears that he's Jewish, immediately turns around.
Well, and it's also it's the first time at the end of the first act that it's even explicitly said that he's Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, he just uses the word mazel, and then it's implied.
Yeah.
But it's not until then, the moment right after the armband, it's like the first time you see the swastika, the first time it is explicitly said that Schultz is Jewish, that all of this starts to devolve, and that scene almost feels like, as somebody watching it, that you're like watching all of the pieces of the story kind of fumble out in the midair and you can't catch them all. It's just like all of the things at once.
I feel like I will always remember the exact way that I felt as soon as like I saw the armband revealed for the first time when I watched it. Like my heart dropped to my stomach. Like I kind of gathered throughout the show that okay, this is gonna be a bit more serious than I anticipated. But just like seeing that, it was my first time seeing anything like that in person, and just kind of like all of the messages that were strung together in that scene. It was just I don't know, the way that like I felt so uncomfortable, yet I couldn't look away. It was like watching a train wreck in the most incredible way possible. And I think that that's so interesting.
I feel like kind of it's just Cliff's character. just sitting there watching this happen. Yeah. It has been fun. Like when I've told people I'm in the show, and they're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm Cliff," and they're like, "Cool." Who's that? Right? Like, and of again, I feel like that is, but is like just the history books don't remember most people, right? Like again, like there are just the people who are there who are observing and say this is bad. I don't know what to do about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that is kind of Cliff's character. Like he wants to look out for him and those around him, but like push comes to shove, survival, right? Like is what a lot of it comes down to. And so like most of us are just here to not in a bad way. I mean like just in a factual human. Like most of us are here to observe, and that's
Well, he probably feels a little guilt too, because he's helped fund them. Right?
Yeah, like again, like we benefit from things that we don't like all the time, right? And like he's doing more than benefiting, right? He's actively aiding and abetting, but like again, like that is, again, like he, kind of the same thing of like kind of what you said about watching the show. It's like you have an inkling, like he had an inkling, like of what was going on, but it's like hey, but money, and that's powerful thing.
Willfully ignorant for money.
Yeah.
What you don't know can't hurt you.
Some of us are just really ignorant, that's why.
I see Fitzy, she's a Kit Kat girl. My idea was she's like a modern day TikTok influencer.
Oh, I love that. That's kind of the idea that I had. It's like people get on there to have like a artistic escape, and sometimes you're actively scrolling and seeing everything that's happening in the world, and you're like, oh. But then you like also use it as a way to, like you said, kind of find that artistic expression. And that's kind of how I see it. It's like everything going on, and I'm here because I have to work, but also because it's they had to partially enjoy it, you know what I mean, to an extent, but also it's like understanding that there was that double-edged sword too. So that's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all super great. Kind of moving into a little bit more of, I don't know, a background on the Holocaust itself. Being a history major, I've learned all kinds of things that have to do with the Holocaust that are not things that you might typically know. So I kind of just wanted to go over some things that happened during the time period that may be something that you want to reflect in your character, maybe some things that have to do with your character that you hadn't thought about yet before, but just kind of moving into, there's a part in the casebook that includes a bunch of research topics that are both in the script, as well as just some background terminology, as well as some people that were important to know. And those are more just if you want more information, but there are definitely some that I think are important to know. But something that I find very interesting was, and it's still there today, on the gate as you enter Auschwitz, the biggest concentration camp, and the first kind of like death camp of types. There's like a big gate as you enter, and what it says on it is Arbeit macht frei, which means work makes you free. And just kind of thinking about what was happening, that's kind of like a sickening phrase. And it was used to sort of deceive the people that they were bringing, because they loaded them all onto buses and then brought them that way. It didn't happen, like they did not kidnap anyone, they did not blindfold them and throw them in a van or anything. They all lined them up and put them on a bus, said, hey, we're all gonna go here. And then there was a bunch of brutality that happened as people began to realize what was going on. But at the beginning of it, it was just like, sort of, I don't know how they really convinced everyone to get on the bus, but they just sort of had these big school bus type things, and they would drive them to this camp, and that is what you saw as you entered. So you thought you were sort of entering this like work camp in a different sense, because money was so tight at the time that seeing that, you would have been like, okay, well, I'm gonna be able to make some more money, this is a job. I'm gonna be able to make money, this is a job. And that is what you saw. The last part of the real world, that is the last written phrase that you saw ever. And then you went into that camp and you died. So that is just something that I find super interesting. Another term that I use throughout the casebook a lot is Aryan, and that is a term that the Nazis used to describe Northern European physical traits such as blonde hair and blue eyes, which is what they deemed racially superior. So anytime I refer to the Aryan race, it is just the pure race that Hitler was trying to construct with this plan that he had made. Other important terms, I think we all kind of understand what concentration camps are, but there was a difference between a concentration camp and a death camp. There were certain people that were taken to these concentration camps, which were the work camps. They were imprisoned by the Nazis, and they were somewhat located in Germany, but another interesting thing is that most of these camps were not actually within the borders of Germany, which is when things such as like the Anschluss happened, which was the German annexation of Austria, which is one of the biggest countries that Germany overtook at the time. So that in Austria, as well as I think it was the Czech Republic, were other places where these camps were located. They were not putting camps on German soil until much later into the war, when they had total control. But at the beginning, they were transporting these people outside of German boundaries because then they had plausible deniability. Sort of piggybacking off of the plausible deniability thing, another important thing to think about when thinking about the Holocaust is that all of the plans that were constructed, such as the final solution, which is the Nazis' plan for getting rid of everyone that was not a part of the Aryan race, Hitler was not in the room for the creation of that. He actually was never there during any of the constructions of these plans. The entire policy that you see, the Nuremberg laws, all of the final solution, those documents that are readily available to read if you're interested, they're free on Google. All of those were not written with Hitler in the room. They were mostly written by Adolf Eichmann, which was his head of the SS, the police in Germany. He headed those meetings along with other powerful people in the Nazi Party, and Adolf Hitler was never there, because then he was able to say that, well, Hitler didn't write that plan, I didn't write that plan, I wasn't there. So think about that. Let's see. Another, yes, there was another camp called Dachau, which was quite literally a model that he created. They created model concentration camps to prove that this would work. Like, it is such like a planned out thing. It's so interesting to me. But another group that is sort of important to think about is the Einsatzgruppen, and that is the mobile death squad of the SS, which is the German secret police force. And so essentially what happened with them is, as the Nazis gained more power and the SS and the SA officers were able to take more control, they sort of had a more radical group of them that was able to just drive throughout the streets and execute people on the streets, or put them in the back of their cars and take them to the camp. So that happened. Another thing, like I said, the difference between the extermination camps and the concentration camps. The extermination camps were mostly, they were really only built for the sole purpose of killing Jews. If you were going to this camp, you were getting killed upon arrival. You were thrown into a gas chamber, or you were just executed in some other horrible, brutal way. And that is mostly where people who were not deemed able to work went. So when you got arrested or put in these camps, you were sort of separated into two groups, a ready to work group and a not ready to work group. If you were ready to work, then you were allowed to stay alive for the time being, and you were able to work in this camp. However, you were not really able to survive because you were worked to death, quite literally. But that's okay, because someone new was going to be there to take your place tomorrow. And with the not ready to work, that was going to be your disabled people. They were all immediately killed, and children. There's a lot of times in history books, even somehow, that the idea of them arresting children is not included in, but there were very much children arrested. I've been to 3 Holocaust museums, and all 3 of them, I've seen pairs of little striped pajamas that could fit a 5-year-old. And so the idea that anyone was safe was not true at all. So another kind of key term is Führer. That is what they referred to Hitler as, because it means leader in German, but it was adopted specifically by and for Adolf Hitler. I mean, how much of a narcissist do you have to be to make your own title? That's crazy. But he adopted this title after the death of Paul von Hindenburg, who was the president of Germany. He appointed Adolf Hitler to be the chancellor of Germany, and once Hindenburg died, Hitler was like, I don't want another president, so I'm actually going to combine the 2 titles of president and chancellor, and I am going to be both of them and have complete power. Because in Germany at the time, the president couldn't do anything without the approval of the chancellor, and vice versa. So him making himself the core leader meant that he could do whatever he wanted with no checks and balances. The other big group is the Gestapo, which was the secret state police of the German army, and their entire job was just to stamp out political opposition. So they were not going through and arresting any Jews or anything of the sort. They were arresting people who were out protesting, out making waves, making people think anything different about the Nazis. Another section of communities that was important to know was, when you think of the word ghetto, this isn't exactly what you think about, but every neighborhood had something called a ghetto, which was where Jews were forced to live during the time, and it made them easier to round up because they weren't ready to take in all of the Jewish people at once. They had to build more concentration camps. And so while they were waiting to exterminate all of them, they kicked them all out of the houses that they had been living in and forced them into a separate corner of a neighborhood called a ghetto, which was used to round them up for deportation. Another thing that I sort of wanted to draw attention to was the usage of the word Holocaust. And so something interesting about that is that it directly translates to burnt offering, which is a way that Jewish people would deliver their thanks to So we're using the term burnt offering to refer to the sacrifice of Jewish people as an offering to God, which is a bit strange. So it's just an interesting way to phrase a mass genocide of God-fearing people, using their language that they used as like a sacrificial offering to thank him for their death. So for that reason, a lot of people have taken to calling it the Shoah, which means catastrophe. Obviously, like, I still use the term Holocaust because that is how most people use it. But within my history classes at school, we call it the Shoah because it's a bit more respectful when you think about the translation, the Yiddish translation of the word. So just kind of thinking about that and how even the word that is widely known for the event is not respectful to what happened. There's absolutely nothing respectful that has come out of that. So, other important things. And if you have any questions, please feel free to, or anything you want to say, please feel free to do so.
That's the wind with the door, by the way. Don't be alarmed. It's just that it's very windy.
I honestly thought someone was vacuuming.
I thought someone was
That's the wind? That's more concerning.
Yeah. Yes.
Quick
I'm
question,
worried that-
SA and SS.
Yes.
SA was the first group,
Yes. So
and then
the
SS was.
The SA was the stormtroopers. So the SS is kind of like your more typical. It's the German Army's elite guard. So I guess your like ranking of them would be like the Gestapo was like your typical police force, but all of these groups typically worked for the army. The German police force was essentially cast out at that point because if you didn't work for Hitler, you didn't work. So your Gestapo was like your typical like adhering to the law, keeping everyone on the right path when it comes to all of the laws of the country. And then your next level was your SS officer, which stands for Schutzstaffel, which is the German Army's elite guard. So the German Army had, these were people who were specifically appointed from police forces and from the army to serve as Hitler's personal protectors and to administer the concentration camps. Next you have the SA, which is your stormtroopers, and that's the more terrorist organization of the Nazi army. They were formed in 1923, but they did not become more public until about 1933. And their main job was literally, as it sounds, it was a terrorist group. That's just kind of how it was. And then on top of that, you have your final group, which is just the people who are executing everyone in the streets. And I can't remember which that I introduced you to as them. That's my bad. But the Einsatzgruppen, yes. That was they just drove around on the streets in unmarked vehicles and executed people. And they really had no proof. It was just kind of like, you look like someone who's not right. Bye. And then they just sort of buried you in a mass grave. But that's sort of like where does that make sense?
Yeah.
The line of like, this is like normal, and then this is like, that's horrible. So that's kind of the ranking of the German officers at the time. That was a good question, though. Especially for your character. Yes. So another important group thing is, for this show specifically, is Kristallnacht. So this is called, translates to the Night of Broken Glass, and this happened from the night of November 9th through 10th, 1938 in Germany and Austria, and this was when a lot of officers, as well as just anti-Semitic people, went into hundreds of synagogues, Jewish-owned businesses and homes, and burned them down, just killed Jewish people, stole from their stores, broke their buildings. That there the reason that this is so important in this show is because the scene in Act 2 where Fraulein Schneider and Herr Schultz are having a conversation about how this isn't going to work. Fraulein Schneider needs to keep herself safe. There is, at the end of that scene, the MC drops a brick between the two of them. I'm not sure how you two are planning on blocking that, but something of the sort will happen like that. And that is very reminiscent of this event happening, and that's just kind of important to think about when thinking about this scene, because I think it's a direct callback to that event, since that is mostly how windows into the shops were broken and mostly how people broke into them, is they would throw rocks, bricks, debris through their windows, and that is how they would get into these people's houses. So that is just another important thing to think about. Another phrase I think that it's not super important to know for the show, but I do use it a few times throughout the casebook, is Lebensraum, and that is directly translating to living space. So this is what the Nazi Party called their plan for taking over all of the surrounding states of Germany and making sure that Germany was going to become the supreme leader of the world. They had a bone to pick with America because America had come up so quickly and become such a powerful force in the world, and they wanted to take over more land and become a bigger global power than the United States. So that is a word I've used a few times throughout this that you might not know. So Mein Kampf we all have heard of, especially with it being in the script, but in case you didn't know, it directly translates to My Struggle. And Hitler, this is his autobiography, and he outlined all of his ideas, beliefs, and plans for the future of Germany in this book. So a lot of people kind of saw this book as just like allegory, or like, this will never happen. Well, surprise. But he wrote this book from jail. He had been arrested for like disorderly conduct, I think it was. And he wrote this book while he was in jail, and that is sort of how he passed his time. And I just find that very interesting. But yeah, it is about his struggle with anyone who is not white, blonde-haired, and blue-eyed. So that's really beautiful. Another important thing to know is the Nuremberg Laws. So these were the anti-Jewish laws that were enacted in 1935, and they included denial of German citizenship to those of Jewish heritage and segregation of them from Jewish society into those ghettos that we talked about earlier. And they also established degrees of Jewishness based on family lines. So what that sort of means is that they would go into like looking in your family history when it came to how bad of a Jew you were. And they would see, okay, both of your parents are Jewish, you're fully Jewish, that's a problem. One of your parents is Jewish and the other's not, that's even weirder. But then they'd be like, okay, your grandparent is Jewish, but like your parents aren't. So we're gonna kind of let that slide for now, but we're gonna make sure you're still living in a ghetto so we can get to you later, but you're not first priority because you're not fully Jewish, so you can't cause that many problems, but we'll get to you later. That sort of thing. And that is just sort of how they grouped people into levels of importance when it came to who to take out first, and being the government, they had access to all these people's documents, and that is sort of how they did that and how they chose to do what they did at the beginning until it sort of became a you're all done for sort of thing. Another important thing, let's see, oh yes. So we all know what the swastika is for this, but this is also, it was an ancient symbol utilized in, I believe it was some sort of like witchcraft potentially, but it was a symbol to ward off evil spirits, and then the Nazis adopted it for their flag. So that's just, I don't know, the idea of them using this symbol that was meant to ward off evil as their like flag of hatred, I guess, is very, very interesting. And then another thing, like I was talking about earlier with the Ready for Work and the Not Ready for Work program, the T4 program was the euthanasia program that was directed against physically and mentally disabled people who were considered useless in the German Reich. So this is how like cremations and gassings would occur. This was just the program to sort of take all of them out in one fell swoop so that they didn't really have to think about all of that. Another thing is the Third Reich. We hear about that word quite a lot, but the reason that it is used is it is the name for the Third Empire. It was the name given to the Nazi regime in Germany because Hitler both really admired the Roman Empire, and so him calling this the Third Empire was him basically saying that this would be the third version of the Roman Empire, which is another thing about like the Nazi salute. That was originally a Roman salute, and they adopted that from ancient Rome as well, because he had this weird obsession with the Roman Empire. So that is sort of, he modeled his entire plan off of that, and that is why we call it the Third Reich. No, you're good.
I'm not sure if this is a question for you or Kim or something that's been, I know that depending on the ending of the show, like has been like versions I've seen with choreographed with like the Nazi salute at the end. Is that something that?
I do think the end of Act 1 will have most of the ensemble, essentially everybody but you four doing the Nazi salute. I think the end of the show will be just the MC out on stage.
Because I think it's more like the 93 one or the Alice
Sure.
one with all the characters. I just wasn't sure if that was
Nope.
something that they...
Nope. Party will end with everybody singing it and doing the salute. Yeah.
Top of Act 2 potentially.
Yeah, top of Act 2, we will incorporate it into the kick line because there's a part where the kick line morphs into goose stepping. And then it appears a lot in the choreography for Welcomen. It's hidden in there subtly, but it's in cabaret, ou cabaret, to cabaret. So it's the Nazi salute forming a swastika. It's subtle. I mean, most of the ensemble didn't notice it until we pointed it out. But like that's kind of the point too. It's the plausible deniability. Like that's I'm incorporating a lot of dog whistles into the show, and those are just like little secret messages to send to other people that only the two people that know about it will hear. So, in like literally for a dog whistle, it's a whistle that you blow and only your dog will hear. I am incorporating those in the show, not in a way to glorify or honor, but in a way to always have that threat looming in the background. And audience members that are clued into what the show is and what the show means might notice that, but yeah, I think other than, what was that?
Go ahead.
I said, just other than that, I don't think we're gonna have too much of the saluting happening. But
I think that with us only having about 10 minutes left, I do really want to get the point across that dramaturgy is something that I did not personally do my first 10 years of theater. I started doing it because of someone that I met in theater. His name's Thane. Thane Lamb, for those of you who have been privileged to work with him, he's so phenomenal. And he taught me how to do this research for a show called Sylvia, where I played a dog. So like that is setting the scene. And you might say to yourself, well, Adrian, why would you need to know the historical context for a show where you played a dog and humped the floor? Like, why is that important? And this is a show as to why dramaturgy is important. In every single show that you are in, you build a world around yourself. And yes, we are up here having fun, and yes, it is intentional, and those two things can be true. And so while this might seem like, oh my gosh, yes, I understand. I know what happened during the World War II and the aftermaths of it. I do really want to challenge that belief. And if this inspires you to become a me, where I now try to do at least 2 to 3 hours of dramaturgy for each show I'm in, I make sure that I understand my character's background and context. I make a silly little Spotify playlist that I think my character would resonate with. And then I also make a Pinterest board, because while we are, yes, playing a character, especially in this show, it is ever pertinent that you feel like a person. Mm-hmm. What we've talked about tonight is not just so you're aware, it's to remind you that these people were people, and that the experiences from this musical have real consequences, and we have to treat that with the utmost care, but we also get to have fun. And I know that we all have felt that into this journey, and so I just want you all to hear it and know that that's why this night is so, so, so important, because the world that we built is a real world. Never does a girl play a dog in real life the way that I did in Sylvia. But dang it, I needed to know what was going on in New York City during that time, because it impacted my character. And dogs have motivation too. And that's my spiel.
Yeah.
That's really
It's really important for, I think when you do musicals, the director spends less time with the ensemble than if you were to do a play, obviously. You guys are going to spend most of your time with Kim. You're going to spend most of your time with Matt. And then towards the butt end, you'll really start to work with me. I would like to have a night where we sit down and do Kit Kat Club member backstory and all of that kind of research. I would like to get that on the schedule. I'm going to look at that here in a little bit, probably tomorrow. But the characters that the ensemble are just as important as the characters that your leads are. Sarah and I stayed back last night and kind of talked about, and she asked kind of her motivation as a Kit Kat Club member, and I said, you're the girl that's worked here for the longest of all of the line. You know the drill, you know the dances, you are the to reference Chicago, Candor and Ebb's show, you're the Mama Morton of the group. You are the mother to the younger Kit Kat Club members. You are the mother to the Kit Kat Club boys. You see this place for what it is. You love it and hate it at the same time. If you've ever worked like customer service, you know the girl who's worked at the store for 20 years and she's kind of cranky, but if you get on her good side, she's one of the best people you could ever meet. Your backstories for the Kit Kat Club members are so important. And the nice thing about this show is you are all named. You are all named for a reason. There was a reason why I didn't overcast the cabaret ensemble. I could have, but it was important to have all 7 of you, right? No.
6.
9.
7, 8, 9.
10. Yeah, all 10. It's 10. 6.
4.
Yeah.
6
Math.
girls, 4 boys.
Math. Sorry. 6 and 4. Yeah,
Wow,
10.
I did math
Duh.
wrong. I did
Gosh,
6,
I'm an
9,
idiot.
9.
It was important to have all 10 of you be not like it was important for me not to have, and then you are no name Kit Kat girl. It was important for me to have you all named. It was important for me to have you all. I love how this show gives you each your individual moment to be introduced. I love that. I think it's so fun. I think it's great. Use that opportunity to show off and make the audience excited to watch you in this show. All of the backstories are important. I always say you should know what your what your character had for breakfast that morning is like how detailed you should be. Where does your character live? What does your character eat for breakfast? What is their favorite color? Like, none of those things will transfer on stage. But I think a show that is filled with that many small details as a larger picture really shows and pays off. Shows off. Yeah. My brain is mush right
I get
now.
it.
I'm so sorry.
Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I do want to state that tonight is a night where things like de-rolling and closing activities are really important to you. Jensen and I joked of like good cop, bad cop, of she's going to give you maybe a lot of heavy information and then I'm going to swoop in and say, make sure you take deep breaths. So make sure you take deep breaths if that is what helps you. So use these techniques today because I know that history has impacts and it weighs down on people, and learning about these things is really hard. So make sure you take care of yourself in the day-to-day life that we live.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that when you see my face, oh my God, she's gonna come here and tell me another horror story. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is what I study every single day. I go to class Monday through Friday, and this is what I learn about. Currently, the class that I'm taking on the subject is I'm in a propaganda course right now. So that is I know, timely, right? But every semester I have something in relation to one or two classes in relation to World War II or the Holocaust. And I have to spend a lot of time taking care of myself because every single day I learn something new and horrific, and not to be that person, but it makes me more and more scared every single day. And it's very, very important for you to take care of your mind when learning about this stuff. I want you to learn about this stuff. It's important for you to know about this stuff, not just for these characters, but it is important to know about history so that you can not make the same mistakes that people in the past did. I want you to go through this casebook that I spent way too long making and look at everything that you have questions on. My phone number is on here. I want you to text me. That is how I will respond to you quickest. I don't care. I'm not one of those people that's like, only email me for business related thing. I don't care. Text me. Or email me if you'd rather do that. I don't care. I also have that on my phone. I'll respond to you in 2 minutes. But I want you to utilize me. I want you to utilize this. If there's anything that I can do to take weight off of your shoulders for making these stories come to life, if there's any additional research that you want me to do for you, let me do that. There's already been some people who have reached out to me and asked me to do some more individual research for them or help them do some individual research. If you would rather do that on your own and you're looking for ways to find that information, I'd be more than willing to teach you how to do that research on your own, or I can do it for you. It's what I'm here for. But most of the things you're going to need are in that casebook that I shared with you all. So if you don't have access to that, make sure that you come talk to me. And if you don't have my phone number, put that in your phone. I am available all the time, and I'm always here for you guys to make sure that you're able to put on the best presentation of this show possible, but that you're doing it in a way that is healthy for an audience, and that's also healthy for you. Because you're playing a person who lived in a hard time, but you are also your own human, and you have a life outside of this that you need to stay healthy and happy for. So we need to make sure that you're doing that. But thank you for letting me come in and talk to you guys tonight. I appreciate it. I am so excited to see you guys back again when I'm done with working on the other show I'm in, Company. So as soon as yes, as soon as Company's over, I am excited to jump in with you guys. If you want to come see Company, please do. You're gonna get to see me crawl around on the floor in a wedding dress, so that's always fun. But yeah, be sure to reach out to me with any questions. I will stay after for a little bit if you wanted to talk to me or ask me any questions on your own time. But yeah, other than that, I am all good with you guys.
Thank you so much, Jensen.
All right. We'll send out a daily call. We'll see, I don't know off the top